Agriculture Progressive and Development Initiative. In view of this, let's speak with Dr. Olukayode Oyeleye. He's an agribusiness analyst and he joins me live in the studio. And joining us virtually tonight is Omori Edogiawiri, a startup business lawyer and is also a financial analyst. Gentlemen, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us on Politics Tonight. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you.
Omori, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. So let's start this conversation from the studio. At 40.87%, food inflation reached its highest level in 25 years. But now that we have this figure reduced to 39.53%, how much progress have we made?
Well, it's an evidence of some progress. But what I would say is that it's not a reason for relaxing or resting on our oars, as it were, because we're talking about figures here on paper, but in reality, in the market and in homes, has this actually reflected so much? That's one area we need to look at. And then one has to also understand the fact that this is a season, ordinarily it's a season of harvest. At about this time of the year, it's expected that the prices of food will go down drastically because of new farm products. Particularly, you have yams, you have corn, you have some other staples coming out about this time. And another reason why we must not rest on our oars is that since early July, there has been this extended dry spell running into the 6th week now. And it's a real cause for concern because when all the chips are down, the product of harvest that might eventually come out of the farms may not, they may not really reflect the reality of what probably had been projected as, the end product during the harvest, at the end of the harvest season, because a lot of farms now are devastated because of the drought. Many crops, withered on the field. And just before coming to this place, I was looking at some pictures of some farmers, lamenting right on their farms. And there's a particular woman that was weeping, right on her farm. And all of these are as a result of what people planted, and drought destroyed them. And so losses as a result of drought are likely to be very high this year.
So that's what you mean by extended dry spell? Yes,
because naturally, annually, what we used to call the August break should not last beyond just about 10 days to 15 days. But this one has lasted now, it actually started from early July.
Okay.
So it has entered the 6th week now. So, and for that reason, it has really destroyed many crops that are like corn that are supposed to be ready for harvest. Now, many of them couldn't really make it because they've dried on the farm, and some other crops as well.
But generally, when you look at, addressing food inflation, yes, is it really a hard nut to crack?
It's a bit of a hard nut to crack, especially when you look at the dynamics of population and production. And then, of course, when you also think about a lot of things happening in a country like in Nigeria, for instance, where a lot of what we produce, particularly, let's take grain for an example. A lot of the grains we produce in this country actually end up outside Nigeria. If you go to places like Kano, for instance, a major market, which is about the biggest in West Africa there, there were no markets. A lot of what we produce actually go out. And the forces of demand and supply actually also affect the prices. So depending on what experiences the countries that are coming to Nigeria to buy are going through, the demand, the pressure on what we have here might also cause prices of what is harvested in Nigeria to increase. And the same goes with some other points, like if you go to Jigawa State, like Megateri, or you go to the northwest, like Ilela, and or maybe like Maradi, or if you go towards the northeast, like around the Adamawa State, Gori, or a little bit northern part of the northeast of the country, like Banki. All of these places are places through which a lot of agricultural products actually exit the country, and they are basically informal trade. We really don't have records of that. So if we're working, on what is on the paper, for instance. These are some of the confounding variables that we are really not taking into consideration and can make a mockery of whatever we are looking at on paper.
All right, we'll come back to that. Mr. Mori, let me bring you into this conversation because in July, federal government announced about 6 strategies in total. First is the 150-day duty-free import window for food commodities, and that covers suspension of duties, tariffs and taxes for the importation of certain food commodities through land and sea borders. We've also heard the minister say these commodities include maize, husk brown rice, wheat, cowpeas, imported food commodities will be subjected to a recommended retail price. First, does this demonstrate a clear understanding of these complex matters on ground?
Well, it shows that government is listening to expert advice. You know, Jumoke, that we've had this conversation before. And one of the things I said was, this is the kind of subsidy intervention that we need and subsidization that we need, which is going to the root cause and trying to see how you address those issues as against giving stipends that are not sustainable and will only just dissipate resources. If you look at the revenue that customs is going to be, for want of better language, losing as a result of these waivers, it's over 188 billion. And you know, if government were to share that in 50,000 or 10,000, they'll tell you they've reached how many homes, but how do you gauge that impact? So I think that it's a step in the right direction. It's coming a bit late, but better late than never. And the intentionality of the products. Rice is a staple meal in every home in Nigeria, no matter how you paint it. Beans is also one, wheat, play a very pivotal role. So this cuts across rice, bread, beans, and the likes. Maybe they should find a way to subsidize cassava so that Gary can also come down more. But on a more serious note, this is very important that this is done. But I have a concern, and which lies in the implementation. Because we're hearing, oh, there will be a list of importers, there will be a list of accredited people who will be able to import. Implementation has always been a pivotal problem in this part of the world, where policies, no matter how altruistic they appear, get hazied up and messed up in implementation. You also now begin to see issues of nepotism, issues of different sentiments begin to come to play in deciding those who will be in the forefront of this active implementation. So government must be very intentional. This policy will be useless if implementation is fretted away. And I think that if you want to throw open the windows, throw it open. Let this place be flooded with food first. And I think that must be the pivotal concern of government at this time, to crash the prices at any means possible. Because if you now begin to pick those who will benefit from this waiver, what happens to the others? Secondly, we also have to look intentionally at the backward integration aspect, right? Because one of the requirements is that some of these exporters must have plans in place for backward integration. And what does that mean? Essentially building capacity to now produce these products locally. And the challenges we've had with indigenous manufacturing and indigenous production of food, the doctor and the audience may be able to corroborate what I'm saying, is certain infrastructural challenges that oftentimes go beyond the businesses and the manufacturers themselves. Issues of power, insecurity, access to road networks, logistics, supply chain, and access to credit. These are key issues that continue to stifle indigenous production. So I don't think that making backward integration a pivotal requirement for assessing this or being listed among the exporters who would be able to import these products at no rate should be a key incentive, because government in itself has a key role to play to to ensure that these companies are able to adequately integrate, are able to adequately produce locally in such a way that we will reduce reliance on export. But it's a good start. It's a good way to show government's intention of making food affordable. Now, a hungry man is an angry man. Now, who job better food? They talk principle. Right now, people just need to eat. And it's important that we flood the market with food. The only way the prices of food can come down is if there is enough food in the market. And when there's enough food in the market, competition sets in. When competition sets in, people shoot down their prices to be able to sell. If you don't have enough in the market, there is absolutely no way the prices will come down.
All right, so Mr. Murray, let me take it up from there. What then do you think we need to do within this 150-day period to give us some security after the window is over?
Like I said last time, government must declare a state of emergency in our agri sector. And there must be a clear fusion of technology and the manual development, right? Doctor was talking about rain, droughts affecting harvest. And that's because we continue to rely heavily on natural happenstance. We're in a world of technology. Technology is a moving train, and we have got to come on board fully. And one of the important things that we need to look at is to be able to mitigate some of these natural challenges with technological innovations. We can't be battling a food challenge, and water is the reason why we don't have proper harvest, when every day we're having dams overflowing and we're having places being flooded, right? We must now begin to look at utilizing technology and mechanized farming to be able to bridge this gap. Secondly, we have arable land. Travel from here to Benin, and then you see the amount of bush and land. Government must begin to designate agriculture development zones where people are free to go there, get land, can farm and produce with the support of government, right? So let's put the land we have. Our land mass is good, right? The issue of insecurity continues to be a challenge, and the emphasis government has continued to be intentional about it. But we must now look at where are the areas in this country where these types of food are produced in large quantity. Do we beef up the security in these areas? Do we address the societal or community issues that have led to the insecurity in these areas, so as to ensure that people can freely farm and harvest their products and export to other parts or transport to other parts of the country, right? So this 100 and something days intervention must be full swing. A state of emergency in the agricultural sector must, as a matter of emergency, be declared, so that what we're doing in this shortfall, because it's not sustainable for customs not to charge import duty on this product. It's not even sustainable for us to continue to be importing. So if we don't want this 188 billion to just go to waste, we must now intentionally support improved indigenous production, so that when these tariffs return, it won't be back to the problem. There would be local products to be able to compete with exported products, and the market will not feel the heat of the removal of that. Because what we have seen in this country have been an overt reliance on subsidization. We subsidize everything, we continue to subsidize, and so when subsidy is removed, it's as if the carpet has been pulled off our feet. However, where you create sustainable, an emphasis on the word, sustainable frameworks in place to ensure that people are able to adequately function even with the tariffs in place, then you would not have the outcry that we have, right? So declare state of emergency, support indigenous production. Manufacturers have come out to say, look, that any further increase in interest rates is going to be disastrous to them, right? So we are hoping that the next NPR meeting will not bring up another increase in interest rates.
All right, let me come back to the studio. Doc, I see you nodding to some of his submissions.
Yeah.
He has talked about that the president needs to declare a state of emergency in the agricultural sector. What do we stand to achieve with that?
Well, I've had this expression over and over again, but I tend to have a different way of looking at this issue, because when we talk about declaring a state of emergency, what exactly are we aiming at? For me, what I think we should be looking at is this. It talked about sustainability, and I will take it up from there. Now, government is a continuum. And I expected if government of this country in the past, say, 10, 15 years had actually continued with some of the good programs that, the successive governments met on the ground, in agriculture in particular, we will not be talking about some of the problems we are talking about now. And because I recall between 2011 and 2015, there were some key interventions that were brought on board under the agricultural development, under the Jonathan administration. I need to be very specific, where, some interventions were brought, on board, and they were working well. But a change of government led to the jettisoning of those interventions. And actually, it's like, starting all over again. So successive governments should learn to take the good things, that they inherit from their predecessors. And that's what I would say there. Talking about sustainability, because government policy, flip-flop, is a major problem, especially in this field of agriculture.
All right, Doctor, we need to go on a break, and when we come back, we will continue this conversation. Okay. But I must also say that when we come back, this program continues on our other channels and on YouTube. Please stay with us.